was close to me, all stayed on dry land. So now I'm driving back on Interstate West. I just gotta feel something. Not gonna wait till the morning.
Friends, Live at Lunch is going to begin here shortly. Just another 30 seconds. Live at Lunch with Robin Riggs. Coming up, Flat Earth. Hello, friends. Today we're talking about the flat Earth, specifically as it relates to the round Earth. We've got a couple people watching already live. I'm going to introduce you in just a minute to them, but I want to say, hey, Byung Sar Agnet. I don't know if that's how I pronounce your name because you got some punctuation marks in there I'm not used to seeing. But anyways, what is Flat Earth thing? Well, I'm going to tell you here today, live at lunch with Robin Riggs. Welcome to the Live at Lunch show, friends. Hey, Riggs, how you doing out there, buddy?
I am doing great. Excited to be here, Rob.
Only a little bit, right? I can't tell. Today we got a really great show. Live at Lunch with Robin Riggs is a short midday live show where we talk about everything from a local 757 podcast kind of perspective. You can actually watch the podcast live over here on YouTube at youtube.com/Robert Ham. You can also find the podcast anywhere podcasts are syndicated at Live at Lunch, as well as the sponsor of the show, the local757.com. We cover a myriad of different user-submitted topics every week, from live streaming and video production to aliens and the search for Bigfoot. Live at Lunch brings you a thought-provoking lunch show best enjoyed with a friend. Right, Riggs?
Absolutely.
I hope you meant that. Best enjoyed with a friend as a casual ear, and hope that everyone out there listening is going to have an absolutely great day. We can expect thunderstorms this evening in Virginia Beach, Riggs. It's not going to be too much fun. Hot and rainy, 89 degrees. We're going to cover more of the weekend report in the weather segment coming up. Friends. We got a big, great show today. We're talking to Flat Earth. Let me give you the outline real quick for those listening. We're going to introduce the subject to those unfamiliar. We're going to share our experiences and kind of dig deep into some of the things that the Flat Earth theory provides. We're also going to then discuss how the round Earth theory challenges that, specifically with observations. No funky math here. Next thing is, halfway into our show, about 26 minutes, we're going to hit up with a drop report. Of course, you know the drop report is that report letting you know the best places to go and hang out over the weekend in Virginia Beach, whether it be a karaoke bar, the club, or the beach. No matter what you're doing, you're going to hear about it first on the drop report at Live at Lunch with Rob and Riggs, only on the local 757. And we tell you on Wednesday, so you can have something to do. And our show is going to wrap up with a Did You Know segment. Riggs, I hear that we have a very interesting lady that's going to talk to us about the Did You Know segment. Have you had a chance to chit-chat with her today?
No, not yet.
Okay.
I have not.
Well, we're going to bring her on the show later and have a chit-chat. And I've friends, listeners out there, she may have to submit those questions or those things she wants us to know for the Did You Know segment. It has to do with Flat Earth. She wants us to know them, but she may have to do it by email, depending on, I don't know. When you understand who she is, you'll recognize that we were excited to get her on the show, but she may have time constraints. But for now, let's just jump into the weekend weather. Riggs, are you ready for a weekend sun and fun at the beach?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, forget that. The forecast for the weekend will be humid and wet, nasty. Temps will hover around the low to mid-70s during the day and 50s at night. Friday's May 6th is going to bring scattered thunderstorms, and man, it's just no fun. Winds are going to gust around 13 miles per hour both Saturday and Sunday, and that trend will continue until Monday, where it begins to clear up in the evening. Guys, you know I'm a big film shooter. Riggs, I know you love to shoot on your cell phone pictures of family, friends, and cool places that you've been. I've seen them. Guys, if you're shooting film this weekend, why not consider it black and white? It's a perfect time. We got overcast skies, rainy day, and if you're going to do that, consider Ilford HP5 or Kodak Tri-X. You'll enjoy the inky blacks and velvety highlights of each with crisp detail across the frame. Guys, you know I love film. I shoot film all the time. Big photographer here in Virginia Beach. I personally like the gritty grain of Tri-X. Others may prefer the smoother contrast of HP5. Either way, it's bound to be a good time. Riggs, are you going to be using your cell phone to take any selfies this weekend?
I might. I'll consider it. You kind of sold me on the idea with the weather being what it is coming up.
Yeah.
And I do like black and white photography. I think that's kind of an interesting mood and tone, although it might be getting a bit overused sometimes.
So tell me,
those are perfect conditions for it.
Yeah. Well, what are you going to be looking for? What do you think they can look for? I've seen your photos. You take some good. You got any tips for our listeners out there?
Well, I would say for the average photo shooter, one of the biggest, most common errors that I've seen is not centering the shot in the frame. And it kind of, once you take the photo after the fact, it kind of offsets things a little bit, makes things seem a little strange.
Yeah, I'm with you. So center the shot, and then, but I'm thinking that. What about tall buildings? If you're a selfie shooter or a mobile phone photographer, you could look for tall buildings and trees out there around puddles. Those reflections are going to give a great way to give you a forced perspective. Make sure you center the shot so that it looks nice, and use that to get a great inspiration for any shoot on a rainy day. Friends, I hope that you have enjoyed these tips over here. Sponsored by Robert Ham Photography. Guys, if you didn't know, I am the Rob in Robert Ham Photography and the Rob over here at Live at Lunch. So if you need a photographer or anything like that, check us out. I also do a lot of the photography for the beach. And Sam K. Riggs over there, Mr. Sam Riggs, I understand you are the editor for the Local 757. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely.
Guys, if you want to know more about Sam, check out Live or check out thelocal757.com and email them over at live@thelocal757.com. And that's that, my friends. Riggs, we got it all out of the way. What do you say?
Hey, I'm ready. I'm ready to dive into this. This is a great topic, and it's gonna stir a lot of thought-provoking questions amongst our viewers.
All right, Riggs is bringing it around. Okay, we're going to be talking about something about 5-minute chunks, friends out there. So if you're listening, about 5-minute chunks. Each chunk is going to be a little bit of a different topic. We got a few of these coming up. We expect to end about 45 minutes after the hour. So that's the listening outline. This first chunk we're in right now is actually the main topic introduction. We just want to have a general kind of discussion. We want to talk about what is flat Earth, where did the idea come from, are there any organizations with it, and we're just trying to give listeners that are unfamiliar with the flat Earth concept an idea about how it picked up steam. Now, I want to be clear at the front. We're actually talking about theories and topics and stuff like that. I don't believe that flat Earth is a theory. I don't think that it holds any water. I completely believe the Earth is round, but as I'm going to be talking today, I'm going to be talking from a perspective of looking for common ground and a place of understanding, because I think that when we begin to ask these questions, it shows someone trying to have some kind of idea. And I think that Riggs and I are going to talk today. Riggs says he's got some things to talk about later. I don't know, that may easily prove just for your own eyeballs. You may not even need any kind of thing. So, flat or round is the Earth? Riggs, go ahead. Talk to me, baby. Well, what do you know about flat Earth? What is it?
Okay. I'm not personally a subscriber to the theory of flat Earth. However, what I will say is that my basic understanding of it is that the Earth is not a round, spherical globe, if you will, suspended in space.
Okay.
It's more like a disc, a flat disc, that if you were to take across the top and level it off, like scraping cake frosting off with a butter knife, you could make the entire Earth flat like a Frisbee, and everything that we see in the stars above is suspended above us. We're not really in some sort of rotation in our solar system.
So the flat Earth is saying that we're flat and everything around us kind of rotates. We are the center of the Earth. That's the concept. And it gets a lot of root in Genesis, specifically for the Bible. And sometimes people use that to make fun of the flat Earth, but that's not the idea here. So talking about the firmament, that disk that we're on, and the firmament in the sky, that's kind of where this idea came from. And although a history book and a book about people, I don't know that the Bible is a science book. But if God's real, and I believe that he is, he did create man with a brain with lots of wrinkles. So science is the way we explain God's work? Maybe? I don't know. But in any event, yeah, flat Earth like that. Do you know where the idea came from, Riggs? You got any ideas on that other than the Bible?
Well, I know it was the standing theory for many years, because, in my opinion, a lack of technology, man was unable to see past a certain distance. So if you were lacking the scientific instruments to test that, it would be it would seem apparent to you that the Earth was flat. You would have no reason to believe otherwise.
Yeah. So the idea that the Earth is flat has kind of been debunked already 2,000 years ago almost by the Greeks. There were several different tests that were run. Aristophanes, I believe it was, that did the test of the summer solstice. He did one in Cairo and one in Rome, looked at shadows of sticks, found that they fell at different sides, different lengths, and then compared those lengths with geometry, which, Plato, Aristotle, those guys figured out mathematics and discovered the radius of the Earth. Now, we're not going to go into all that, but the idea that the Earth is flat and people would sail over the edge, was that something that Columbus was worried about, you think?
I can't speak to it. However, I do know that was, a lot of the history books, people said you could only sail so far because if you did, you would hit the edge and you would fall off.
There's a couple of things I'd like to go ahead and just hit a debunk about that. So since the ancient Greeks knew that the Earth was round, and since the Ptolemaic theory of the geocentric model of concentric rings and epicycles and epicenters, this whole idea of how people prior to the Kepler theory of the helio-sun-centric Earth, they tried to explain the movement of the stars in the skies. They recognized that those things were round in shape, that planets were round, the Earth was round, the moon was round. So I'm gonna tell you, I gotta hit it up, baby. Riggs, the idea that the Earth was flat, they weren't worried about sailing over the edge. But it brings a good question. Like today, looking back without a good framework, you might actually see maps that have an edge that looks like a waterfall. And why do you think that is?
I think, people nowadays are looking for something. They're looking for something different, something edgy. If you'll use the pun.
Wait a minute. No, I can't let you go on that one. Where's sad trombone? Here we go. Yeah, you have to get the sad trombone on that one.
All right.
There's one more time. Okay, that's enough of the sad trombone. Go away, sad trombone. You've been very helpful.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's such an easily disprovable theory that it's sometimes I think people are looking for something more that isn't necessarily there because it gives them, a sense of mystery, if you will, or a sense that everything isn't as it seems because it makes life more exciting for them.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. So there's a couple places you can go. There's actually the flatearthsociety.org that you can go to find out more about this. I got a lot of my information from there. And this is a pretty big society here in the United States. I got to tell you, I believe it's all pseudoscience. And I'm going to share with you why I believe that and as we go through. And because I believe concretely with things like Jesus Truck and Shark Boat, hashtag. If you don't know those guys, check them out. We'll leave the links down in the comments after the show. I think that we can easily show just with your own eyeballs looking out over the Chesapeake Bay towards the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel. In fact, that's the experiment in Jesus Truck that I did. You can actually see the bridge disappear. Now, it's either that Jesus Truck works and trucks run on water, right? Or there's curvature of the Earth. And what's even more interesting is if you haven't ever thought about that, you would think that water is flat and always seeks its own level, and that sounds normal. The Earth is really big. We're going to talk about that a little bit later, but what I want to talk about here is the Flat Earth Society kind of get its start from ideas in the 18th century when science was really becoming more mathematical and harder to comprehend. You should be able to figure out for your own self, for your own senses, with your own eyeballs, what you see is real. You shouldn't need a whole lot of crazy tests in geometry and mathematics. And that's where this idea of the Flat Earth sprang about once again, back in the 50s, with these Universal Zetetic Society, something like that, as they go through. Now, I might have some of this crisscross. The Zetetic Society may have been something else. The Zetetic method is a way of thinking, and we're not going to talk about that in this part of the video, but that's one of the reasons that, one of the forms of thinking that the Flat Earth Society uses to say, if you can't prove it, it must be real, so you can't falsify it, it isn't fake if you can't falsify it. That's kind of one of the ideas. I don't know. So there we go. I think it's time to go ahead and give the listeners a little question to think about while we massage our brains just a minute. And the question I'm going to be is, what is flat? Guys, think about that for a second as we move into the second section of our conversation today. We're going to answer a couple of questions about, is the Earth flat? All right, friends, we're running right back real quick to the topic. We're still kind of giving the introduction and an overview in this conversation. We've talked about the idea that the Earth is flat. What is flat? If you want to know what flat is, you might want to know what gravity is. So, Riggs, what is flat? What do we know about it? And what type of things do you think are questions we should ask? What do we want our listeners to pick up on today?
I think it's very important to understand that, the term flat Earth is used loosely because, of course, the flat Earthers don't deny the topography of the Earth, the geographic structures, the hills, the valleys, the mountaintops, the ridges, the saddles. They don't deny any of that, of course. So they're saying that the Earth is not a spherical globe and a ball. I take issue with that, and that I've seen it with my own two eyes. I've seen the curvature of the Earth.
Yeah. We'll get into that in a minute. So, but how would you describe flat? What is flat then?
It's a Frisbee.
Okay.
A Frisbee, a flat surface, evenly graded, if you will, like a road, mostly flat, or, there isn't much to it.
Okay. And how do things stay on this flat disk?
Well, in my view, gravity.
Okay. And what is gravity?
Gravity is the force based on an object's mass that holds it in place as it sits in orbit.
So is gravity attractive or repulsive? And does it work at a distance or only extremely close?
Gravity works at varying distances, and it's an attractive force. It's a force that holds things down.
Okay, so what you have just explained really is how Einstein explains the curvature and warping of space-time based on an object's density that is an attractive force that pulls things towards its center. Yeah, okay. But in any event, even if we didn't define gravity that way, right, we knew that things fell down, like an apple from a tree. Bring in Isaac Newton. So he already knew that gravity was action at a distance. The only problem with Newton was he didn't like gravity action at a distance because you couldn't really put your hand on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You couldn't really touch it, and he couldn't explain that. So one of the big differences between Newtonian physics and Einstein, those two gigantic thinkers and the myriad of people in between, is that Einstein's general relativity works at the extremely small scale as well as larger scale. And so it explains what we see on the Earth and how the planets move a lot differently, a lot better actually, with a higher precision, especially the smaller you go when you get into things like molecules and atoms and quarks and everything like that. In any event, that's what you and I would consider gravity. What about on a flat Earth? Does gravity exist on a flat Earth where there's a Frisbee in the middle of a dome of firmament and stars and everything rotates around it? Does that work? What is a flat Earth gravity? How do they explain gravity? What do you think?
From what I understand, they believe that it's constant upward acceleration that basically holds things in place.
Which is really interesting, because if you had constant upward acceleration, at some point in time you would approach the speed of light, because acceleration means a continuance to move. And the constant upward acceleration in the flat Earth model is 9.8 meters squared per second, or meters per second squared. And that is, once again, a continuously acceleration. There's no chance for it to just hit 60 on the cruise control and keep going. No, it constantly continues. So after several billion years, you might actually approach the speed of light. And when you square things, you double it. So every second it's doubling. So it could take 10 minutes. You know what I mean? To approach infinity. I'm not saying that it does. What I'm saying is that's the difference. And so if you guys are thinking about that, when we get up, I want you to consider what is gravity, what is constant acceleration, and what is the globe, right? We've talked about flat. We obviously understand the globe. The concept for the globe, do we need to explain? Sun's in the center, sun's supermassive. It's got a huge gravity, works at a distance, curves of space-time. Things fall into an elliptical orbit around it. The Earth has a gravity. Sam, Riggs, you've got a gravity. I've got a gravity. Everything with mass has a gravity. The difference between the gravitational pull of objects can actually be measured. It's a force difference between you and it, and whichever force is stronger wins, which is why the Earth wins and pulls people down. The Earth rotates on its axis, guys. We have a North Pole and a South Pole. Riggs, you didn't mention it, but in the flat Earth model, did you know the South Pole, Antarctica, is a huge wall extending into the sky to an unsurmountable peak of mountains. It's a wall of mountains. So it's not a wall, it's a mountain range that you can never, ever cross. It does not. You cannot cross it. In any event, on the globe, it's just like you think the globe spins, it circles, and there we go. We have gravity that pulls us downward. There is one up on the flat Earth, which is everybody's up because they're all on a disk. And on a globe, up is always the direction away from center, and down is always the direction towards center. So there you go. I want to bring that out as people sit back and they think a little bit about those types of things as we go into just a little discussion real quick about good old-fashioned Chris West entertainment. Friends, I know you've been following along. I see your suggestions and your comments down all over there. You're having a great time on the show today. Thank you very much. Chris West Entertainment is a live broadcast and service division of Robert Ham Photography, which means we provide on-location live streams, DJ, all kinds of different music for your event, from 360-degree photo booths to, of course, live streams of your wedding or corporate event. We can create all kinds of different products for you specifically, from training manuals and video training all the way down to just spinning some sweet tunes at your next party. You got a graduation party coming up, you got some kind of wedding or event you need a little extra support, check out chriswestentertainment.com. That's Chris, C-R-I-S, West, W-E-S-T, entertainment.com. Let them know Rob sent you, which is, a little weird because I'm Rob.
That you are.
Last time I checked.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, so diving right back into this, I got a couple things on my mind. Got my wheels spinning when you were talking about the Antarctica surrounding, and then I'm guessing they would think the North Pole would then be in the center, and everything else would be, strewn around that, the continents, if you will. Pangea, eat your heart out. So North Pole's in the center, Antarctica's on the edge, and all the continents are in between. Do I understand that correctly?
Yeah, North Pole's in the center, which means north on the flat Earth map is not up. It is a direction towards the North Pole, which is the center of the Frisbee, which means that south is always the direction towards the perimeter of the Frisbee. That means that if you're in China looking north, you're looking kind of up and to the left, and if you're looking south, you're kind of looking down. So what is right? What is east, right? You get what I'm saying? It changes, so the directions are different. Yeah. If you're in Australia looking south, right, and you're on in Florida looking south, you're looking at two different directions. If you're in Sydney looking south, in Florida looking south, because it's like the spokes on a wheel. Those places look to a different point. Does that make sense?
Well, it doesn't make sense, okay. but I get the point you're making.
Thanks.
Because that would mean that I may or may not have quite a bit of time behind a compass, several different types of compasses actually, with the aid of GPS navigation and without the aid of GPS navigation. I have used the compass extensively, many different parts of the Earth, and I can tell you that aside from small variations and fluctuations in magnetic fields on the Earth, north always points north, south always points south, east always points east, west, and so on.
Okay.
So that kind of, begs a couple questions. That leaves a few things for me in my own personal experience that kind of, makes me wonder where you would get this idea. It makes me wonder if the people that subscribe to this theory have ever used a compass in that capacity.
I think I've got some time behind a compass too, and I think I think a lot of what is bringing the flat Earth concept back to life. And guys, we're still explaining just the flat Earth, and we're kind of opening up these subjects. In just a moment, we're going to dig a lot deeper. This is the end of our general discussion topic. The next one, we're really going to dig deep and talk about experiments that you can use with your own eyes if you ever hear that the Earth is flat, and you can help people realize that it is not flat. And it's okay if they think that it's flat. They've got an inquisitive mind. They're asking questions. So don't make fun of them, because that's not what it's about. What if we found out that they were right? Would you want them to make fun of you? No, the idea is to have an open conversation. And we're going to get into that deeper look here in a minute. But right now, that general question, so let's talk about compasses. Riggs, I got a compass, a lensatic compass. I got some compasses that cost a lot of money that I use for orienteering and land navigation. I got no problem. You need to chalk a line and roll, I got you, man. I can hit it out, no issue. What happens when you take that that compass into a different hemisphere? Let's say, is there such thing as a north calibrated compass in the general, just like orienteering section? You go to not just Best Buy. We're saying you buy a nice compass from, someplace online. I can't even think of where do I. Okay, guys.
Cabela's maybe
Cabela's. I usually get my lensatic compasses. I have a few from the Army when they issued them to me back in the day. So wherever the heck the GSA gets them, do they have to buy separate compasses, Riggs? That's what I'm asking.
No.
Oh, why not?
Because the compass needle of north always points to magnetic north, which is at the North Pole.
So the Earth is a bar magnet, right? And it's got two poles, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So even if you're really close to the South Pole, there's still enough strength for the north-facing part of that little needle in the compass to pull north. How does that even work? It should just flip, right?
No, that's not how it works. It will still point to north. However, this is the caveat, there are some magnetic fields in the Earth that can cause distortion in your readings. Mm-hmm. But when one is privy to that knowledge, that is information that is a known quantity, and that's put into a calculation, usually referred to commonly as a grid to magnetic or a magnetic to a grid angle, where you can actually determine, based on the geographic location that you are, how much disparity you will have between what your compass is reading as true north based on the local magnetic field, mm-hmm. and what is being drawn off based on those local magnetic fields. Say, for instance, it could be, 9 degrees.
Yeah, so you'd have to adjust for that angle. That's what you're saying, right? And
yeah.
I think that starts with a D, isn't it? Declination.
Yeah, well, you would also calibrate your compass at a declination station before, so you would know how accurate that compass is.
Right.
So your compass, could be plus or minus 3 degrees, mm-hmm. and that would be pointing in azimuth, which is a straight line between two known points.
So,
and
I just want to jump in here. I get you. There's a bar magnet, which is the Earth, North Pole and South Pole, and it's a globe, a three-dimensional globe, spherical, not completely spherical. The compass has a bar magnet in it as well. That's the needle, right? That's why it's floating around in a solution so that it can go. So it's going to point north even in the south, because the opposite end of the needle is what you're telling me is, it's the south pole of the bar magnet. So it pulls to the south, just like the north pulls to the north, and nothing's flipped. On a flat Earth, since every direction down, not down, but south can be up, down, left, or right, depending on where you are, the compasses flip. They don't work the same. Imagine north not being on a globe, but north being the center of the Frisbee, right? and then south being north is one point, the center of the Frisbee, but south is all the points on the perimeter. Does that work?
Wow, that's kind of that's tripping me up because
Right, it doesn't work, does it?
No, it doesn't work.
Okay.
You got an aspirin, man?
No. I hope that I'm not making your smooth brain get any smoother, because I have eroded my mind thinking about this. But I've done it in the concept of, I had a bet that the earth was flat, and that's where Jesus' truck is going to come in. And I think we need to kind of go ahead and talk about Jesus' truck. But before we jump into Jesus' truck, the truck that runs on water, and you guys can go find that in the description down below. If it isn't there yet, I'll post it after the show's over. But we're going to talk about this later. I'd like to let you know the bet. I'd like to let the listeners know. The bet was, quite simply, prove that the earth is flat. I don't believe it's flat, was the bet proponent. And they said, listen, can you go to a body of water that's sufficiently flat that you can look out? I live on the beach, so of course I can. I can look out over the ocean, which is interesting because I do live on the beach and I have a lot of time looking out over the ocean, right? So I'm not landlocked. And where a lot of these people may think that the earth is flat comes from landlocked positions too, I would think, because you don't have the opportunity to look out over a completely flat, we're going to use that term loosely here, object, because the earth is curved, so the water curves around the earth. That will blow your mind. We'll talk about water drops here in a minute. But the concept is the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel is a known distance, and it's a known length, and it has a known height and elevation. And the posit was go out there, zoom in as far as you can to the tunnel, and see if the pylons are still there. If you've gone sufficiently far enough out and the earth is really curved, as you say it is, then you should not see the pylons, the support structure, only the top of the bridge. Because at some point in time they would disappear over the curve of the earth because they're further away, and if the earth's curved, further away would mean lower in elevation from the viewer's standpoint. However, if the earth is flat and not round, and this is what the person was positing, I should then see nothing more than, no matter how far I zoom in, no matter how far away, if I could zoom in and get a clear enough image, I would always see the pylons, because the earth is flat. It's just a flat plane. What do you think about that?
Okay. I know from personal experience that that's not the case.
All right. Well, before we do that, right, I want to let the viewers and the listeners think about that for a second. Guys, this is a great opportunity to go ahead and add that down in the comments below. Let's think on those things for just a moment. Friends, I've got to say, we got carried away and going. We're supposed to have that drop report coming. So right now, the drop report, live at lunch with Rob and Riggs. Man, there's a lot of cool stuff happening here in Virginia Beach. Down here at the ocean front, it's going to be a rainy time, but you can still hit it up at any of the local golf courses. I want to talk about Jungle Golf for a minute. Jungle Golf is a place I've gone to 100 times in Virginia Beach, and it's been a spot of first kiss, first dates, and a great time with my kids, my friends, my family, even old Riggs over here. We've had a wonderful time over at Jungle Golf. Riggs, what's another place in Virginia Beach that you like quite a bit?
Oh, I like Jungle Golf, and I love Red Wing Park, and I like the Rudy Inlet a lot, actually.
Tell me about Red Wing Park. Why do you like it?
It's sentimental. I grew up around there, and, going there as a kid with my friends and having picnics or playing baseball in the big center field there, growing up, exploring the little trails in the woods. I just, I got kind of a soft heart for it, a soft place in my heart for it because of nostalgia, I guess.
Yeah, no, really nice. As far as we're concerned, there's a lot of stuff that's actually happened down here in Virginia Beach, and once we get there, we can find out anything that you like. We got Create Resin Art in Virginia Beach. That's taking place today at Uncommon Redesigns. That's going to be over there down at, where's Uncommon Redesigns? It's 236 Clearfield Avenue, Suite 207 in Virginia Beach. 1 p.m., so you might miss it, but it's going to continue throughout the weekend, and it's going to be the ability to go and just create art in resin that you can take home and have something that's just translucent and a lot of fun. We actually have Sunday brunch coming up at Rockefeller's Restaurant. This reoccurs every Sunday. I absolutely love Rockefeller's. Go in there and get their eggs Benedict. I don't think Rat's in there anymore as the head chef. Not that he's a rat, but that's his name. Back in the day, Frank Bauman owned the Bauman family owned Rockefeller's, and I absolutely love it. Right across from Rudy's. Have fun over at Rockefeller's. And I want to let you know that there's a blues night going on at Shore Drive. This is continuing over the weekend. You can find it at 3656 Shore Drive in Virginia Beach, Virginia. And it's going to be weekly on Wednesdays. Find it over on the weekend with other live music and barbecue by Froggies between 8 and 11 p.m. And guess how much it costs, Riggs?
How much does it cost?
Free $100. That's free with an F. Free $100.
That's my favorite price.
I love it. I love it. Riggs, we're kind of behind. We've been talking about this so much. We gotta kind of move forward. We're gonna miss our hack. We got about 10 more minutes. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about this curvature of the Earth. Guys, I described to you Jesus truck earlier. We were moving into that conversation just a minute ago. So basically, I went out and I performed that experiment, and I found, what do you think I found, Riggs? When I set my camera up, zoomed in 48 times. Remember, guys, I'm a photographer. I have access to lots of nice cameras, but I was using about a $2,200 camera at the time, and it was a camcorder, so I could record video. 48 times zoom, and I zoomed in 14 miles away. What do you think I saw, Riggs? Did I see? Riggs, what did I see, Riggs? Tell me what I saw.
Well, I would say that you saw a bridge extending miles above the water.
Oh my God.
Thus proving the flat Earth theory.
Don't do this to me, because first of all, if it's extending miles above the water, then the Earth isn't flat. It's a bowl Earth, which means it gets higher on the side, and it feels something like out of Halo or maybe Interstellar, and that would be amazing, but we'd have to lose a planet. So you just screwed up my whole weekend. Thanks a lot. The weekend report is no good anymore. The entire drop report doesn't work now. Thanks a lot, Riggs. Let's be real, though. I didn't see a mountain. I didn't see it extending high into the sky. What do you think I saw? Such a joker.
I would say that you saw the same thing that I saw multiple times when I've been out at sea, and I could see multiple or flat a long way across the horizon.
And what's that?
At some point, the bridge would have disappeared, and only the things on top of the bridge, or the top of the bridge, and then the objects right on top of that would be visible.
And you're exactly right. That's precisely what I saw. The bet was for $100. The proprietor of the bet, the proponent of the bet, the ascriber to the bet has made good on their bet, which is great, because that means that they could not explain why the pylons that held the bridge up were not visible. So for listeners out there, if you don't have a chance to go, basically there should be an amount of drop on the curvature of the Earth that would obscure behind the curvature of the Earth a part of the bridge. And that drop can be calculated and measured. We can do the math using geometry, actually using trigonometry. I had to break my brain on this one because I found something interesting with the most purported notion of determining if the Earth is flat and what the curvature is. It's actually a parabolic equation. We learned about those in the quadratic sections going into like middle school, 7th and 8th grade. It's y equals x.
Quadratic equation.
Yeah, I know, right? And
oh, man.
Yeah, I know, right? And it's, I told you no math on this, but the current the most professed way to determine the curvature of the Earth currently came from a guy named Rottenborn or something like that back in 1825 or 1850. I don't remember. That's not the important part of what I'm saying either. So if I'm wrong about the name, I apologize. What I am saying is that the 8 inches is the curvature of the Earth. We know that. 8 inches per mile. So 8 inches equals the number of miles squared. So 13 miles squared is 169 times 8. It's like 1344 or something around there. I'm just going off the top of my head. Divided by 12. Well, that gives us so much drop that we actually get to like 80 feet of drop. We shouldn't be able to see the bridge at all. We know the bridge is 40 feet above the water, and the deckment of the bridge is 10 feet thick. So there's 50 feet between the surface of the water, give or take high tide, and of course the wheels meeting the pavement. And so according to that, see, I kind of blew my mind. I knew something was wrong, but I was on the right track, because when I did the the math, when it was all set up, I thought, well, we won't see the bridge at all because it'll be hidden behind the curve. But you know what I saw, Riggs? I saw something in between, and I saw Jesus truck. I saw the bridge completely disappeared. You guys can watch it. There's a big truck. It's an 18-wheeler. Now, we know that 18-wheelers have a box frame that's 13 and a half feet tall and 8 feet wide. Might be 10 feet. I believe it's 8 feet, though, wide.
How much of it could you see?
Well, I'm going to tell you in just a second. I could see the entire truck and wheels and the actual cab that was pulling the trailer. I could not see the bridge. The pylons were gone. It looked as if it was a Jesus truck, right? It looked like the truck was walking on
water or driving on water.
Yeah, Jesus truck. Jesus. That's why I called it Jesus truck. And I made the video and I put it online so anybody can see it. It's going to be linked in the show notes down below. However, what we know is, I guess my point about all those measurements and other things is, without attempting to use any kind of math for someone that's listening, trucks don't drive on the water. So how could you explain a truck that appears to be driving on water when you have that truck tracked driving on a bridge when it was closer to you? So did the bridge disappear? What happened? Right, and that's the point. Obviously, the truck doesn't drive on water. The truck is still on the bridge. If you stopped at the truck, got out and looked down, you would see the water, you would see your height. But all of that is obscured because the point of view of the camera is at a different point on a globe, far enough away that the curve of the Earth obscures the bottom part. So you only see the taller things the farther you go. But the problem I had, Riggs, was that when I did the math, I thought that I wasn't going to see any of the bridge. But I did see the truck. I didn't think I'd see any of it, is my point. And I found out that equation, y equals x squared, is only slightly accurate at close distances, and because it's a parabola. And I scratched my brain, and it wasn't until I went back to my college introduction to mathematics in the geometry section when they started talking about solids, platonic solids, and everything else. And I realized, wait a minute, is the Earth shaped? What's the shape of the Earth? A globe. That's what we're saying. Spherical, basically a sphere, a ball, right? But what's the shape of a parabola? Well, that's like an egg shape, right? So that's the reason that it was showing more curvature, because when you use a quadratic equation like this, a parabolic equation, you're not creating an equation that represents the curve of the Earth, but you're applying whatever you find from that equation to the curve of the Earth. If you were using an equation that was not parabolic but was trigonomic, then you would actually be able to account for the curve of the Earth better. And to be quite honest with you, the trigonometry, it's been so long since I've been in college, it kind of escaped me. So I ended up just going and finding an actual, I worked my way through the problem and came up with 66 feet of drop. And then when you look at it, the truck, right, is... there's 40 feet under the bridge, 10 feet above the bridge, right? And we were right at low tide, which means that there was an extra 5-6 feet because the water was lower. Well, there's 55 feet, and all I could see were the wheels. That makes a lot of sense. That's why Jesus truck happened. But it wasn't until when I didn't have the confirmation bias, because I knew I was right. I know that I've seen the curvature of the Earth, right? But
I know I've seen it too. So
I did, but I didn't stop when I saw something I wasn't expecting. That didn't make me say, see, I'm right, and that's it, because that wasn't good enough for me. I wanted to understand why what I thought was right wasn't right. So I only got halfway there. You know what I mean? So the reason this is important, there's a big experiment that's used to talk about the curvature of the Earth and how you can see Detroit from Lake Michigan and all this other stuff. And they say, if you use this equation, we shouldn't see the tops of the buildings, but we do. Well, the reason that they see the tops of the buildings is because they're using an equation that is more erroneous and incorrect the farther away you go, because they're using a parabolic equation to give curvature for a spherical object. So that's why it's
take into consideration the elevation that you're standing at and the elevation at what you're staring at is, because if you're at a higher elevation, the curvature is going to affect you less.
Yeah, where your point of view is definitely affects how you can see, without question. But, and I really appreciate you saying that. The point is that, if you're using this parabolic equation for the curvature of the Earth, you're going to have erroneous results at longer distances. And that has been in perpetuation since that guy Rottenborn, or whoever he was, back in the 1820s or 50s, which I said earlier I couldn't remember, since he postulated that idea.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's one of those things. So I wanna move into a little bit something else. The question then is, and we're hitting it right here. So we're going to go just in order to continue our conversation. We're going to go and follow out these two segments, but we're going to rapid fire them. And I want to ask Riggs, tell me, what is flat, and does water curve, and is flat the same as level?
Flat and level are not the same, and water does curve.
Can you give me some examples? Because the reason I'm asking you this is because proponents of the Flat Earth Society, even on the Flat Earth Society webpage, discuss flat and level as being equal things, and discuss water as seeking flat and level, and discuss water in the concept that water does not curve when it is allowed to stand still. And those are underpinning foundational points of the flat Earth. So to be able to answer those questions without any mathematics, through pure observation, would directly refute their assertions. That's what I'm saying here. So give me an instance, if you can think of any, when water... Oh, well, what was I going to say?
Okay, well...
Are you prognosticating now? Like, you know?
Yes.
Okay. Are you, okay,
Yes.
Go ahead.
So,
what was I going to say?
No, I've got an example for you. A flat, not level. A seesaw. An even board on a seesaw will be flat. But when the seesaw is not at equilibrium, it will not be level.
Yes, but a seesaw is a rigid object. So to be fair, for the flat earthers, they got this one nailed. They would never say that a seesaw is flat and level.
Well, I'm getting there.
Okay.
I'm moving there. Okay.
Okay.
And water, who said water can't curve?
The flat earthers.
Water curves all the time.
They say it does not curve unless it's in the shape of something that makes it curve. It does not, like it will take the shape of a container. They agree with that. But they say it will not curve on its own and dare you to prove otherwise.
So then why can you blow ring bubbles underwater?
Don't blow the mind yet, Riggs. Is there bubbles? Is there something else that takes the shape of a bubble that water can do?
A sphere.
Okay, a sphere, right? But what about a water droplet, right? So that's important to think. When you talk about this bubble, that just made me think that concept of a water droplet. Yeah, in and of itself, a single drop of water, a drop of dew on a plant in the morning, a humid morning after a cold night, a warm morning, you can go out and see water that's curving all the time on that leaf. See, that's happening because of surface tension and equilibrium, right? So water curves its own. The concept that water doesn't, that always seeks its own level, it doesn't make itself flat on that leaf. It constantly curves. And another one would be, would you agree that water vapor, which condensates back in the sky as a cloud, it doesn't take the shape of a square, does it? What's its shape, Riggs?
It's round.
Yeah, without question, it's round. And then as it gets enough mass to fall, it becomes teardrop shape, right? So the concept that water, and there's reasons for that, fluid dynamics, aerodynamics, everything else. So the concept that water is flat and level and always seeks its own level is actually a very small look at what's actually happening, right? It's a very close look. It's not the 30,000 foot conversation. But how does water stick to the globe then? The next thing that I find whenever I have this conversation is that, well, why, if the earth is curved, how come the water doesn't run off the side of the earth? So although the pylons are gone and Jesus' truck is cruising, he's got some deliveries to make, global shortages and all. He can't wait for the earth to be flat. He's just got to go. So how come the water doesn't just bulge out on one side? Why, Riggs? Why? That would be the next question. That is the next question when this is usually postulated.
I'm not an ambi-turner. I can't turn right. I can't turn left. I don't know, man. Well, I'm having a hard time with this one, bud.
Gravity. Remember, gravity is that force that pulls everything towards the center. In fact, gravity is the force that the surface tension of the water is fighting against at that point when it reaches equilibrium. Because
we established that gravity doesn't exist. We're just constantly accelerating.
I know
upward.
we talked about that, but if you were constantly accelerating upward, that spherical dewdrop would need to be flat. But it's not. It's not flat. Don't even give me a question. To the credit of the person that did concede the bet that they couldn't explain it, not that the earth was round, but the bet wasn't to prove that the earth was round for that person. The bet was simply that if they could not prove why they did not get the result they expected, that they postulated based on their theory, that they would give earnest consideration to the fact that the earth could be round. Hey, I'm good with that. That's perfectly good. And they conceded. It was not, however, until after I asked this question. And I don't understand. This is something that flat earthers refuse to talk about, right? You can't find it anywhere on the Flat Earth Society. You can't find it anywhere. They don't talk about it. Even in like the Flat Earth Dave, these guys that are big proponents of it, they won't talk about this. How do you explain the sunrise? Okay, over a body of water, the Flat Earth model says that the sun orbits at a parallel distance to the moon, circling the earth to opposite of one another, like marbles on a track. In any event, if that's the case, the sun is never rising in elevation or sinking in elevation. It's always at the same elevation, which means it never goes below the horizon, because it's always above the horizon, because the earth's flat. So the Flat Earth model predicts that the sun will simply appear as a bright spot from the vanishing point, which is a term that uses to describe how parallel lines appear to vanish over long distances. It's a whole thing. If you're an artist, you understand. It's why buildings that are built straight, that are really tall, look like they tilt inwards from your perspective on the ground. Those are vanishing lines, and they converge at a point far away from that called a vanishing point. In any event, the Flat Earth Society's model would suggest that the sun would not rise because it never sets. It would simply appear as a bright spot that gets closer to you from the vanishing point as it approaches you and gets smaller as it goes away. Now, this is something you don't need water. You don't need to live by water to completely debunk, right? Have you ever seen a sunrise, Riggs? Oh, you took too long to answer. I'm worried. Have you ever seen a sunrise? You worried me there. My heart's beating fast. Oh no.
I've seen lots of sunrises and lots of sunsets.
Has the sun ever approached you as a complete object that just got larger in its apparent size? Or does the sun seem to peek its head up as if emerging from beyond the horizon, like coming out of the ground? Or does it just get from a small point bigger? Which one?
It appears as a relatively consistent sized object that comes from, slivers up to whole as it rises, and holes down to slivers as it sets, like slices of a pie. It never appears to get further away or closer.
Right.
Like a yo-yo effect of some sort.
Sure. So right, and that really is the linchpin. And I think for the gentleman that I was having the conversation with, the linchpin was that you might be able to discuss some things about Jesus' truck, but that's it's not ambiguous really, but that's something I had to go do. And I never even thought, when I was having the discussion with him and others about flat Earth, the concept of the rising sun didn't even hit me. And it's something so simple, right? The flat Earth model predicts that the sun can't rise, yet it does. There you go. We've known that the Earth was round for 2,000 years. It was proved back by the ancient Greeks. Columbus was not worried about falling off the edge of the Earth. These are just things that weren't there. They weren't important. We've had the heliocentric model, the Ptolemaic model. They all recognized no matter if the sun was at the center or now that, of course, whether or not the Earth was at the center or now the sun was at the center, it didn't matter. They recognized that planets orbited either the Earth or the sun, depending on the one, in concentric circles, which we now know to be ellipses, but they called them circles with epicenters, and they recognized that they were spherical in object. In fact, another way to prove, just a real quick question, and I hope I think we've missed our deadline for our special guest, which we'll go into in a second, and that's okay, because I just got an email that has some of the questions that they wanted us to, statements they wanted us to say, so we'll get those out here in just a second, my friends. Sorry for running over the timeline, but we're going to be done. We're just about to finish out. In any event,
Oh, it's been fun though.
it's been a good time. I think we've had a great conversation. I think that's an important part. But the idea that we've known that the Earth is round for a long time is important. This concept that it was flat and people in the Middle Ages were worried about it is just not true. Leonardo was definitely not worried that the Earth was flat. He wasn't. Okay.
Genesis, for the record, the book of Genesis doesn't say the Earth is flat either.
Oh well. The reason it's thought to be flat is because it discussed the firmament filling the heavens like a dome. So if you have a dome over it, the obvious thing, think about putting a donut on a plate and keeping flies from getting it. You might put a glass dome over top of your dish or something. In any event, that's the ticket. So that's where we are. We've kind of talked all the way around. I want to kind of transition us into one little piece. I want to talk about why people believe what they believe. We're just going to hit this up for a second. Riggs, why don't you take it away? Why do you think people believe or want to believe that the Earth is flat? What's the point? What's behind it?
I think it's a symptom of the age we're in.
Yeah?
I think we're in an era of time where a lot of things that are known and quantifiable facts are being questioned. And they're being questioned because people are failing to believe in some of the institutions that have been established a long time as credible. And I think that's a symptom all throughout society that goes across the political spectrum. You know, it transcends politics, religion, and all other kinds of variances that we have in our society. And I think that's a symptom of the age. That's why I think these things are becoming popular again. Mm-hmm. These ideas that are countercultural to known facts.
Well,
that's my take.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think you're on the right angle with that, and that's what I've come when I've talked to people about flat Earth. And here's the thing, man: if you're laughing at someone that thinks the Earth is flat, that is the total wrong idea, because it puts you in a presumed position of authority, which you totally aren't, because you haven't been to space, right? And if you haven't been up in an airplane recently or lived by the ocean, if you haven't done the tests for yourself, you're really just relying on Rob and Riggs to tell you. Go out and look. So I think that's...
Well, I've seen it, but I get it.
I get it too, but sometimes you do need to put these things to the test for yourself. But
yeah,
the
absolutely.
idea, the fact that someone would question it, there's lots of reasons to question authority. I got no problem with questioning authority. You should always question authority because you need to make sure that it's not leading you astray. But at the same time, I think it shows that the person has a curious mind about the world around us. Think about that. These people are asking questions and are standing up for what they believe in against a lot of odds. So they've got a lot of reason to be invested in this. I wonder if the conversation was changed from attacking and being right to just conversation, if that could help everybody as a whole. I don't know.
I think we could do with a lot of that in a lot of areas. I hope I didn't come across as snide or haughty, if you will.
I don't think so, man.
but
I don't believe it.
I base what I know on what I've seen and what's apparent to me. But that by no means do I look down on people who subscribe to different ideas or theories about flat Earth or different viewpoints on a whole wide range of subjects. In fact, that's one of the foundational principles of what our country is about. It's the freedom to think what you want.
Yeah.
And to pursue those things and to back those things up.
Yeah.
And I respect people who are of a questioning mind. I do believe that's a good thing.
I like that you said that because that allows for the conversation to be inclusive. And I really want people to hear this and send us emails and stuff like that and leave comments. I want to leave this part and go into our Did You Know section with our special guest. We got her statements right here. I wanted to go into that, but I want to make a call out to the believers that the Earth is flat. And I want to thank you for listening, but more importantly, I want to thank you for considering. And I have this to share for you, and this is good for them and anybody. If you still believe that the Earth is flat, or if you still believe in something after hearing something that may be contrary to your objective, I want you to remember that good scientific research, it doesn't seek to prove anything. It seeks to falsify, or it seeks to find falsivity with your theory. And it makes a lot of sense, because let's say we wanted to prove that all swans were white. Well, we would then have to look to make sure that was a true statement for every swan that has ever been to determine if they were white, right? And we know from fact that would take a long time. However, to disprove the postulate, the theory, the saying, the assertion that all swans are white, all you need to do is find one black swan. You see, so the concept is to attempt to disprove your theory. So, flat earthers, I believe, you're working on the wrong side of your argument. In order to provide credible evidence that the earth is flat, you should be able to disprove that the earth is round. You should be working to also prove that the earth is round. Because if you cannot prove that the earth is round, then it must not be round. It gives a lot of more credibility to the argument. And that's the way that science works. It doesn't seek confirmation bias. In fact, good scientists are critical, good thinkers are critical about what they think and attempt to disprove what they think in order to find the proof that what they think is concrete. Does that make sense, Riggs?
Yes, I do believe it makes sense. I mean, that is a thing. However, the caveat I would make is that, like as we established, this is the questioning age.
Yeah.
So people are going to object to that reasoned argument that you're making, that it's much easier to try to falsify your thesis than to try to prove every aspect of your thesis.
It's easier to prove it wrong than it is to prove it right. And that's actually the basic foundation of the falsification principle, which good science is built on. Prove it wrong, because it'll be easier to prove it wrong than it will be to prove it right. Lots of fun stuff going on right there. My friends, it is time for Did You Know? Did you know? Let's move into it, guys. I want to thank you for listening. We got a special guest. We can't actually have her on the phone because, last we ran too long. We're about ready to clean up. We're hitting an hour already. We expected to be 15 minutes done ago, but I hope you've had a good time. Mother Earth is the sponsor of this message, and she wants you to know that if the Earth was the size of a cue ball, the Earth would be the smoothest object ever made, smoother than anything man-made, regardless of the mountains on the planet like K1, K2, the Himalayas, Everest, like if that place is even real. I don't even think anyone's been there. Especially Mount Fuji, Mount St. Helens, and then the Marianas Trench. If it was the size of a ball, a cue ball, it would be the smoothest thing ever. That's how big the Earth is. Mother Earth wants you to know all of these statements are about the size of the Earth. That way you can get an idea of just how big the Earth is. What do you got, Riggs?
Wow. It's been a great show, man. I've had a lot of fun. I've got a lot of personal experience. I've seen the curvature of the Earth with my own two eyes at great distances. But I don't want to be one to disparage anybody who thinks otherwise. I would just say, challenge your beliefs and don't become emotionally attached.
Riggs, what are you doing? You're going into the outro. We got the Did You Know section. Riggs, it says right there, if the Earth were the size of a cue ball, then how big would the people be? Think about that for a moment. God, we did a whole script, Riggs. We did a whole script for this. Gosh, dog it, Riggs. What are you doing to me? If the Earth were the size of a cue ball, just like we said about the mountain, you are keeping me on my toes. I just want to get this out there. If the Earth were the size of a cue ball, friends, people would be the size of a molecule. That's how big the Earth is. That's how big. The Earth is huge, and although it spins fast at about 1,000 miles per hour, my friends, Mother Earth wants you to know, and that's 1,000 miles at the equator, you wouldn't notice it unless you were there when it started to spin, called acceleration, or if you were there when it suddenly stopped spinning, right? So that's the difference between angular momentum and acceleration, and the two are different principles completely. Riggs, you got another thing you...
Superman, the old school Superman with Christopher Reeves.
Oh, wow.
Because in that movie, he flies around the globe Earth backwards to reverse time.
Impossible. It's flat. So he flies in a circle and gets really dizzy. That's why time goes backwards.
No, what happens is because the Earth's flat, the time travel will not be possible. But because the Earth's a globe, it is possible. I think that's my correct understanding of it.
Oh, wow. Well, what about next week's topic?
Oh, next week's topic. Man, I'm excited.
What is it?
I got some, I'm
Tell us now. No, tell us now. You're setting it.
We need to hit up Mothman.
Mothman, okay.
You want to talk about something mysterious?
Oh, my God. You know I'm a skeptic, right?
Absolutely. I'm a skeptic, but I might be posing more the flat earther view.
You're a believer. You're a believer in Mothman. Okay, so you listeners out there, viewers, submit your evidence for Mothman in the comments below. You can also send it to live@thelocal757.com. We're going to have a good time. I want to let you guys know that this is our show for the week, The Clock on the Wall, so that it's time to get back to work. We did run a little over. I hope you've enjoyed it. But maybe if you were having lunch with us, maybe those burgers and fries were just as tasty as you hoped that they were, you know. In any ways, please remember to follow our show on thelocal757.com. Catch our podcast on all podcast syndicates under the name Live at Lunch. And watch the show live on YouTube over at youtube.com/Robert Ham. That's Ham with 2 M's. And remember, our show is user supported. What would you like the users to do, Riggs? Help me out here.
I would like to see some comments on today's show, as well as if anybody's got some insight on Mothman or anything like that, that they would like us to, any aspects of that they'd like us to cover next week, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, I like it. Well, guys, I'm going to sign off. I want to say thank you for watching. As always, remember to keep it classy by liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing. And as always, thank you for tuning in, and we will catch you on the next side. Live at Lunch with Robin Riggs. Peace.